अब शुरू हो गया भाई, तूने प्ले कर दिया। वो करना ब्लू वाला,
डिलीट मारनी है रिकॉर्डिंग्स।
वो तो वही नहीं हो सकेगी।
करो, बताना मेरे को। रिकॉर्ड कर दूं?
कर कर उसको कर।
मेरे को लगा तूने वो
शुरू हो गया।
हाँ कोई
करने शुरू। चलो, तो क्या कैमरा में देख के करना है?
यार मेरे को नहीं पता।
तो हेलो एवरीवन।
हेलो
हाँ।
ये थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा मेरे को पता है, कोई काटना पड़ेगा सब कुछ है टेलिंग। कान फट रही है ना थोड़ी सी।
नहीं, मैं समझ रहा हूँ कि क्या बोलूँ। माय नेम इज हर बोल दूँ यार, मैं हूँ तुषार, ऐसे भी क्या करना है? इंग्लिश में ही करना है।
इंग्लिश में ना बेसिकली द थिंग इज वी आर द moronic gibberish कुछ नहीं होता, लाइक दिस इज द moronic gibberish, राइट? यही वन बेसिकली।
हाँ
इससे शुरू करेंगे।
चलो ठीक है। हाँ तो शुरू करते हैं। 1 2 3 स्टार्ट। तो हेलो एवरीवन, माय नेम इज तुषार और
तुषार पे पहुंच गया। बस दिस इज द moronic gibberish, और अपना नाम बाद में करेंगे, पहले तो पॉडकास्ट इंट्रोड्यूस करते हैं ना।
चलो ठीक है।
राइट।
तो हेलो एवरीवन, दिस इज द मोरॉनिक जिब्रिश और मेरा नाम है तुषार। और
या पार्थ शर्मा, द रीजन
तो
फॉर
ये इसका सबसे पहले तो हम इसी बात से शुरुआत करते हैं कि हमें ये मोरॉनिक जिब्रिश है क्या, और हमने ये नाम चूज क्यों किया पॉडकास्ट के लिए।
काफी लाइक विद द यूज ऑफ हिंदी टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ द प्योरिटी ऑफ हिंदी यूज बाय यू। मेरी इतनी नहीं अच्छी तरह आती है, बट द थिंग इज द रीजन moronic gibberish is the name of the podcast is basically because we've decided the fact that we are basically morons at every single human being in the world, and we don't claim to be the clairvoyants. We don't claim to be the clairvoyants of clairvoyants on earth. We don't know anything, or we know something. We don't know everything about the
हम
world.
प्रिटेंड नहीं करते कि हम सब
We don't pretend that we know everything.
और ये एडमिट करने को तैयार हैं कि हम गलत भी हो सकते हैं और हमें चीजें नहीं भी पता।
Right, yeah. So that's the start of it.
So better to be a moron than an omniscient.
Yeah, that one. So that's why the name is moronic gibberish, because it's gibberish basically.
हाँ।
Because nothing is.
क्योंकि 50 years 100 years में कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा हमने क्या बोला।
Yeah, I think will change, and it's gibberish because you cannot, you can never be completely 100% right. So if you can never be completely 100% right, so it's basically bullshit. So.
और खास करके सोशल साइंस में
जब when you're in a situation where things are well generic in the sense पे।
हाँ। तो ये तो हो गया हमारी एक्सप्लेनेशंस की। अब सबसे पहले शुरुआत करते हैं बहुत सिंपल टॉपिक से जिसका नाम है चाइना। तो इंडिया चाइना कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है और एस्केलेट अभी डी-एस्केलेट हुआ है। पढ़ा तुमने इसके बारे में?
De-escalation, but the thing is that we don't know the level of de-escalation that has happened, right? Like what we've been told is correct though, but we still don't know what they're doing, because here's the thing with China, right? Like it's an aggressive neighbor, and with it being in the forefront of India's borders, there's no de-escalation. There can never be a place where you be like, oh, de-escalation is happening, because any minute there can be a huge escalation. So it's just like when Galwang happened. Galwang was the right, yeah. Galwang happened. So basically proves the point that with China being there, there's no point where you can call it like temporary de-escalation, but it's still an escalated case, because both the countries have this disputed border, and China has disputed border with almost every single country it shares a border with, and then it is in dispute with water territory. So
मेरे को लग रहा है कि वो सोच रहे हैं अभी थोड़ा म्यांमार में ध्यान देते हैं, अभी वहाँ पे उनको संभाले थोड़ा, उसके बाद आते हैं यहाँ पे।
But here's the thing, the democracy in Myanmar was very much pro-China in the sense of it. They were quite pro-Chinese, and the military was.
मिलिट्री थी यार प्रो चाइना, मिलिट्री को सपोर्ट है प्रो चाइना, और या मिलिट्री अगेंस्ट चाइना, मेरे को नहीं पता एग्जैक्टली।
Because like what I believe is that with the push that the military did with the what is the name
Suki.
No, the minorities in Myanmar, Rohingyas, right? So that is a very weird thing for a pro-Chinese party to do, like pro-Chinese party in the sense the military being a party. to the affairs of the state. So that is a weird thing for them to do, because they won't do something like this until unless they need, absolute secure, as in the sense they want the sense of security that, or the peace of mind they need, so that they can protect themselves as a nation. So whatever the case might be, I'm not saying that Rohingyas were at fault, but they needed that, sense of security in their minds, in the back of their mind, that they now can focus on things external to the country, in the sense of security and safety. So that and India is not a huge threat to Myanmar, right? So as in the sense of border territories and stuff.
बड़े 10,000 years in vision नहीं हो side से.
So that movie shows, again, gives you an idea that maybe the Chinese were the ones that they were afraid of, because Chinese have been known to create tensions with, like, just like Pakistan, they create tensions with different fronts, right? So why wouldn't the Burmese, right? The old name Burmese. So why would the Myanmar military not think that China would create such a rift in the system itself to, basically de-escalate the country? And then because you are involved in different stuff in the country itself, you're not focused on the major things, and when you already know that you don't have any threat on the border side from India as a neighbor, the other prominent neighbor is China, which has past dealings with Myanmar in regard to the
Succeed Chinese एक बार भी पूरा म्यांमार अपनी हिस्ट्री में succeed नहीं कर पाया कैप्चर करने में.
It's very difficult to capture a territory.
टेरिटरी उसका वो माउंटेन रेंज जैसी है ना वहाँ पे.
हाँ,
और ऊपर से वो काफी dense भी है forest वहाँ पे.
Dense forest, and I think that the thing is, like, how do you capture a territory, right?
अरे वहाँ उसी साइड से तो उन्होंने नेताजी ने वहीं से तो कैप्चर करने की कोशिश करी थी.
Yeah, but
कितनी 90% कैजुअलिटी थी.
Because like the Free Indian Army, what was called? The Azad Hind Fauj, right? Basically, they didn't have any air support. They didn't have any armored. They didn't have any, basically armored. So when you don't have an armored corps with you, like they had an armored corps, but I don't think they had such a huge support of that armored corps. They didn't have artillery to support them that much, because the Japanese were there to support them. But like, who will count in the Japanese for stuff, right? They're just like suicidal people just running.
मगर shogunate नहीं emperor वाला Japanese, जब Japanese emperor क्या कहेंगे उसको, वो period अलग था ना जब Japanese emperor उसके hierarchy के top पे आता था और सारे उसके prayer करते थे उसकी.
So that was still the period, but the thing is that he doesn't have any power now. But
अब तो नहीं है, मगर उस time में तो उसको worship करते थे.
But still they worship him. Like, I saw this video like on YouTube where they are Banzai salute was. Yeah,
मगर उस time में reference तो नहीं होगी जो उस time थी.
हाँ नहीं, obviously. Well, obviously those things change, right? Because he doesn't hold any power. He just holds a political office. He's just like Queen Elizabeth II. She's the second one, right? Yeah, Queen Elizabeth II. The only thing is that the Japanese people love their emperor. The only thing is the Japanese people love their emperor, and the British people are divided on the monarchical system. Like, why is she still there? Because it's a huge, responsibility. Those people, and they are important for no reason at all. Right? If one of them is assassinated or taken hostage, it's a huge thing for the, let's say, the image of the country as such.
और मैंने वो भी देखा है YouTube पे, देखा मैंने कई सारी वीडियोस बनी है what happens if the queen dies. तो जैसे बहुत ही बड़ा apocalypse आ जाएगा दुनिया में.
But they'll have to change the currency, right? So the currency notes queen का face.
Photo change होगी currency पे.
Okay, it's a huge problem. But you'll still have to be like
transition period रख देंगे उसमें.
Obviously, but still, it's a huge problem. Then the
ये बात अलग है कि कोई cryptocurrency निकाल दे उसके नाम पे.
Queen Elizabeth II quickly. But that's the thing, right? It's like they're basically the Falkland Islands for Britain. There was no use of the Falkland Islands for the British, but the only thing was they still wanted that, the ye old glory days of the British Empire, that nobody can touch us, and they went there to Argentina to fight in the southern hemisphere of the globe too. And
4,000 miles.
And the erstwhile INS Virat, which we just dismantled because we do not care about our, historic ships of the Navy. We just dismantled it. That was the task force carrier at that time, serving in the British Navy. So it was the front warship in the Falkland Wars. After that, it was sold to India. But before that, till 84, na 84 Falkland happened. 87 India bought Virat. 87.
मेरे को ये याद है कि वर्ल्ड फुटबॉल वर्ल्ड कप से पहले हुआ था ये
So like
1980 में हुआ 1990 में वर्ल्ड कप हुआ 1986 में हुआ हाँ उसके आसपास है 84 85
84 the Falkland was happened, right? So that's basically the royal monarchy is the British royal monarchy is basically the Falkland Islands for Britain. The only thing is the Falkland Islands are living in Buckingham Palace, which costs a lot of. Because Falkland Islands are Falkland Islands, they don't cost you anything, but the monarchy does.
कुछ पढ़ा है मैंने शायद उसकी कुछ इकोनॉमी में कुछ इंप्रूव करने लगी है फॉकलैंड्स की
The Falklands will still produce something for you.
नहीं वो उस तरीके से नहीं उसकी ग्रो कर रही है उसकी इकोनॉमी कुछ मेजर तरीके से
For what reason I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Agriculture होगा basically और क्या होगा.
एग्रीकल्चर में थोड़ा ग्रो होती है कुछ टूरिज्म वगैरह कुछ हो रही है शायद उनकी
Up tourism is time paid. Maybe people are going to Falklands for tourism because of the COVID thing. People are like less people are.
अभी नहीं पहले से ही हो रही है याद शायद वो टैक्स शेल्टर भी है शायद वो
Oh, obviously, but like in British territory, right? So British territory directly cannot be a tax shelter, because it's direct British territory. It's like Britain. So like if you are a British citizen, you can fly all the way to Falklands.
तो सिटीजंस हैं फॉकलैंड वाले
हाँ
जैसे वो हैं
I guess so.
अरे वो कौन सी है समोआ अमेरिकन समोआ वो सिटीजंस नहीं है उसके यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के
हाँ, but like I think
मगर वो यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स की टेरिटरी है
residents, they're residents of United
हाँ
States. But I think Falklands वाले cause
मतलब कि पॉइंट ये है कि वो वोट करते हैं उसके लिए प्राइम मिनिस्टर इलेक्शन के लिए
I think so.
वही
We'll check on it.
क्रेडिट है ना
We'll have to check. That's why it's called the Moronic gibberish, right? We don't know everything we're talking about. So
तुम तो चाइना के खान के लिए
this stuff happens.
तो
हाँ.
हम बात करते चाइना और इंडिया की बात करते हैं चाइना और इंडिया से म्यांमार की तरफ निकल गए और फिर म्यांमार से मोनार्की से ब्रिटेन की तरफ निकल गए
Myanmar, say we talked about the Azad Hind Fauj and after that. So more than that और उसके अलावा हाँ चाइना के regarding ना
और क्वीन एलिजाबेथ तब से है ये उसी उस टाइम से है ये विंस्टन चर्चिल के टाइम से वो है
हाँ she's
Queen.
monarch, right? Wow. ठीक है like नहीं यार make myth maybe.
क्या
Myth. That's what the German soldiers did, na, when they were about to lose the war. What the German army did, they like pumped them with meth and like threw them on the battlefield. They
अच्छा?
can't fight.
अच्छा ठीक है मैंने सुना था उसके परफॉर्मेंस एनहांसिंग कर रहे थे उसके
the performance-
जर्मन सोल्जर की हाँ हाँ
I think so. They must have mixed.
अरे और वही तो नहीं इंस्पिरेशन थी उसके लिए उसके लिए कैप्टन अमेरिका सुपर सोल्जर के लिए
But meth won't change your physique, right?
नहीं मगर फिर उसको तो कॉमिक बुक में उस तरीके से कन्वर्ट कर देंगे ना
No, तो Stanley से पूछना पड़ेगा. Stanley से पूछना पड़ेगा. I don't think he
नहीं शायद जैक कर्बी का है कैप्टन अमेरिका स्टैनली का नहीं है जैक कर्बी का
Can we be more nerdy? But इससे बड़े nerds नहीं सकते.
चल हम थे जापान में नहीं जापान
China
नहीं हम
में।
चाइना में जापान में था बीच में
Japan आया था because like the monarchy and stuff.
हाँ,
तो चाइना की बात क्या थी? Right, हाँ.
चाइना की बात होती कि चाइना ने डीएस्केलेट किया अभी
China, like why we de-escalated with China basically is because we are not prepared to fight China, right? So the thing is,
हाँ हालांकि वैसे मीडिया जो मुझे कहते हैं कि चाइना को हरा देंगे चाइना अपने फौजी
yeah,
में
we
क्लियर
can,
नहीं
like,
करता
see, on training wise we might, but equipment wise we won't. So one of the simple things is like there's this video when de-escalation started happening and the Chinese started pulling back. You should have seen the like speed of their tanks pulling back, their equipment pulling back. So if they can de-escalate at such a pace, when because de-escalation is not that much of a hurry, right? Like it's not something that you rush a lot. You can easily, it can be done easily. So in de-escalation, if they are so fast right now, then like the difference, how no matter how many soldiers you amass on the front, right? There will be a time when you will need more soldiers, more equipment over at the front. And at that particular moment, the Chinese will outdo Indian soldiers because of the simple fact because they have
mobility
logistical mobility is more. And the same thing is that the Indian tanks, right? So even if Chinese equipment, like I have said it many a times,
चाइना अपने टाइम से खुद मैन्युफैक्चर कर रहे हैं रशिया से ले रहे हैं
they basically the Chinese ideology in manufacturing, defense manufacturing is कि एक चीज खरीदो उसे reverse engineer करो, steal the technology and then build your own, which is way more shittier than the original one. Because basically you didn't do any ingenuity, right? You just copied stuff and tried to build it.
वो तो चाइनीज कल्चर ही है.
That is the Chinese culture, right? So the same problem. Recently, I think so in Lockheed Martin or someone, one of the person who worked in the F-22 project, which is which is the first fifth generation fighter aircraft, right? In terms of the United States Air Force. So one of those guys, I think, so got arrested because of espionage. He delved in the secrets of the FGFA, basically the fifth generation fighter aircraft technology to China, and they do this all the time. They need, outer inspiration to build stuff.
Wow.
So basically the same goes with their equipment, right? The Type 15 tanks, I think so the Type 15 tanks are the light armored tanks that they deployed on the plateau. I think the Type 15 is there, I'll have to check it again. So they are a light variant of a tank, right? They are a lighter tank, they need less fuel, they need less oxygen to work with, and they're still an effective tank. And India doesn't have a light tank. The tanks that were used in this particular, and here's the thing about the Indian military, so not the Indian military, about the Indian media or the propaganda, whatever you propagate out in the world. So there's this project called the Arjun tank, and started in the 1980s. The first tank was horrendous. Like in the early 2000s, they have this one. Or from an ARD, like there are 2-3 organizations. So they built this tank and it was horrendous. It weighed around, I think, so 65 tons. It's a very heavy tank. Like M1 Abrams, which is the American
standard tank.
There are heavier tanks than this, like the American standard tank, the American tank M1 Abrams, right? It's the standard tank the Americans use. So it is way more heavier than Arjun. But I think so what experts, and we are not experts, but like what the experts in Indian military doctrine history have been, like Indian military who predict Indian military doctrine for the future have been telling us that the next biggest fighting front won't be Pakistan. You can defeat Pakistan easily. Pakistan has nothing to fight for when it comes to India. One of the reasons they said that whenever the ceasefire happens in like the monsoon time, it is basically 100% it is done by Pakistan, because in the monsoons the run of Kutch is basically the Gujarat area, Rajasthan, and even Punjab. These areas are basically on the border. These areas are basically undrivable for tanks. The Pakistanis know, even if there's a war, you cannot come with a huge armored, front and go with, like, basically the Indian military doctrine was defined in the 1971 war and even the 1965 war, because that was the two time India used an offense in the plains. 65 and 71, both the times, what they did was they did the classic German blitzkrieg, the famous Erwin Rommel style, and it's fine with Pakistan, but you cannot do the same with China, because China with a mountain, China you'll be fighting the way you fought in Kargil, and do you have the same level of equipment you need to match the Chinese? And this is something that if you don't, then you didn't learn anything from Kargil 1999, because India didn't have shit in Kargil, and we fought like किसी ना किसी तरह लड़ दूर के पहुंचे थे.
Disadvantaged positions.
We were in a disadvantaged position. So one of the things that, like, I think the only reason India would win, because when this conflict also happened, the stand-off happened, the only reason I was like, there's a ray of hope is when they captured the tall heights. There's a point of escalation where the Indian forces, they went up and they captured the major strategic heights. And then it is, the training works, even the equipment might not, because those things define India's, Indian military intelligence absence, like the brain of the Indian military, that they knew that they needed those particular heights to their advantage if they had to fight China in a conflict, and that was something that was good. The other than that, like, we live in the place where we live is close to a very important airport which transports stuff to Ladakh and all these regions, right? Siachen and all that stuff. And when this escalation happened, you were not here, but I was here. And every single hour, there was a helicopter flying, there was a plane flying away near me. So that showed that the major chunk of equipment, rations, everything that reached there was reached by plane. Nothing reached by land. Even though soldiers might have reached by land, normal trucks and stuff.
जो अभी वो खुली उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा क्या? जो भी टनल खुल गया कल.
Might थोड़ा सा तो फर्क पड़ेगा. Obviously, it will help. But the difference in Chinese, the Chinese, you cannot match it at all.
वो तो मतलब दो mountains को connect करने के bridges बना देते हैं.
So they are at another level right now logistically. So
और वो तो ऐसे कर रहे हैं कि मतलब ऐसा है कि क्या किस तरीके से, जैसे बॉम्बे है ना, बॉम्बे जैसे वैसे तो सी शेप में बॉम्बे,
Mhm.
तो सोच देख मान लो सी के जो दोनों पॉइंट्स है ना, उन दोनों को डायरेक्ट टनल से जोड़, बीच में तो सी के बीच में सी है,
They made a sea link under the seabed.
हाँ टनल बना रहे हैं, और वो उसकी लेंथ कुछ 70 माइल्स के आसपास है, वो पूरा एक कंस्ट्रक्शन कर देंगे एक ही बार
You
में।
can reach from Russia to Alaska.
हाँ वही बात है,
Siberia. That's the thing, na? Their
insane है भाई,
their logistical capabilities are, and I think so. The Indian military doctrine to counter China has always been, even especially before this government, like 2014. Before 2014, every single one particular person knew this, that their basic thing was, okay, what if we don't build roads after our territory comes? So they will have to stop on the border. That was basically the ideological.
ये और उससे पहले ये था कि यहाँ पे तो कोई रहता ही नहीं, तो आएगा ही नहीं कोई यहाँ पे।
Like, but this is what they was their thinking level, that okay, this is our way how we'll defend our territory. What we'll do is
सड़कें बनाएंगे,
we'll create poor infrastructural. We'll create poor infrastructure, and when our troops will have to pull back, they won't pull back because there is no infrastructure over there, so they'll basically die over there. Because if you don't have any air support, they're going to die. So let's factor in that. The troops have died.
Politicians जब decide करेंगे तो यही होगा।
The troops have died, and because there are no roads, the Chinese won't come forward. Completely alluding to the fact that the Chinese can build their own roads. So it was something that is quite ridiculous what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking. I think they were high on meth. The same way the Germans were. So Blitzkrieg को ज़्यादा literally ले गए, but I don't know what they were trying to do. I think they only think that the only place where I think they had an advantage was Uttarakhand, because Uttarakhand, cuts into the Tibetan plateau, and that's plain, so you can basically drive through tanks. So I think what they wanted to do was, so if they get Arunachal and Kashmir, we'll get Tibet. See, we'll open a different pressure point, not considering the fact that you will have two pressure points on you. And you might have to defend Bhutan, you might have to defend Sikkim, you might have to defend Nepal, because obviously, like if in case of a war, the Chinese won't be like, if it's a small territory war, then understandable. But if it is actually a hot war, the Chinese won't be like, they won't shy away with, coming in through Bhutan, they won't shy away from, and what will the Bhutanese military do?
मेरे को लगता है कि इसका बेसिक यही रीजन है कि हमारे अवॉइड करते हैं उसको, मिलिट्री मैन को पॉलिटिशियन बनाना, तो फिर वो जो इनसाइट्स जो वॉरफेयर की इनसाइट्स ये होती है, वो आप या सड़क से नहीं सीख सकते ना वॉरफेयर की इनसाइट्स, उसके लिए तो ऑन फील्ड एक्सपीरियंस होना जरूरी है। और फिर मान लो अल्टीमेट डिसीजन मेकिंग अथॉरिटी कौन है, वही है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर ही है, या फिर जो हो गया मिनिस्टर हो गया, पॉलिटिशियन हो गया। अब उनको कोई मिलिट्री एक्सपीरियंस है नहीं, उनको तो अपना रैली करने का एक्सपीरियंस है, वो वहाँ पे काम नहीं आ सकता है ना, यहाँ की रैली अलग है और वहाँ की रैली अलग है।
Right. Basically, but here's the thing, na. I don't see, like, these are basic deficiencies in the military, and it's not just to equipment. It's
नहीं, मिलिट्री तो डिसीजन मेकिंग बॉडी तो वही रहेगी, गवर्नमेंट अल्टीमेटली तो वही होता है।
ultimately it's the government, right? But still, आपको बस, see, one of the reasons why India lost in the '62 war was basically because we didn't have guns. But like a lot of
We didn't have guns, we didn't have any preparation.
we were not prepared enough to fight a war at that
We
time.
didn't care to prepare for the war.
We didn't care to prepare for a war. And here's the thing, when the British left India, right, they left us with some of the best equipment. They left us with Spitfires and stuff like this, and Hurricanes. But Spitfires and Hurricanes were obsolete in the 1950s. We never thought about modernizing our military.
नहीं, उस पे नहीं था ध्यान, इस चीज पे था कि मिलिट्री में एक्सपेंड क्यों करना, हम तो इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन में स्पेंड करेंगे ना, और इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन में कोई बहुत ज्यादा मेजर स्पेंडिंग तो हुई नहीं।
Basically, here's the thing, na, when you create a bureaucracy that is so big that you have to basically run an operation to sustain the bureaucracy itself, you cannot achieve anything for the country, right? So I think what they did was,
सोवियत यूनियन से इंस्पायर्ड थे, वहाँ पे तो चीजें अच्छी चल रही हैं, अपना 5-6% से ग्रो कर रहे हैं, वो इंडस्ट्रियलाइज हो रहे हैं वहाँ पे, देखो फैक्ट्रीज का, इन्फ्लेशन नहीं होती वहाँ पे,
potatoes भी नहीं होते वहाँ पे. It's an inside joke, but yeah, it's like when the Soviet Union was.
तो लगता है फिर भी अगर मिलिट्री मैन होते ना हमारी हिस्ट्री में, या जिनके पास मिलिट्री एक्सपीरियंस होता है टॉप लीडरशिप में, तो ये वाली वो नहीं होती।
Here's the thing, now even if you, like every single general today, who becomes the chief today. Especially Navy. Even if you take Navy, I'm not talking about the Army or the Air Force, right? The Navy. No one has actual warfare experience in their right. So we have now reached to a batch of officers, the top level officer, military brass today has no actual war experience. You can talk about the army having the 1999 Kargil war conflict, and basically even then, the military brass in the Kargil war conflict today, the who are serving, were at that time in decision making area, they're like brigadiers, colonels, and stuff. So, I don't. And how long will you beat on the drum of Kargil that we fought Kargil and we won? Obviously, you're fighting Pakistanis, and it's like Pakistan is a joke of a nation. So why Pakistan as a
Fake
nation is
country.
Pakistan as a nation is like Ashish Nehra's bowling advice. It's like तू लेंथ डाल सीम जाए वेरिएशन जाए मार्च दाने like that is Pakistan. Ashish Nehra's bowling advice. So don't care about Pakistan. Care about countries that matter.
पाकिस्तान बस एक वो है कि वो बंदर के हाथ में न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स दे दिए हैं.
I don't know how that country is together till date. Like there's
करेंगे
no
भाई, मेरे को लगता है कि दोबारा रीड रहा होगा उसका मैप.
like we're not talking about like हम RSS वाले नहीं कि like अखंड भारत की बात नहीं कर रहे. We're talking about like the internal conflicts.
वैसे EU स्टाइल तो हो सकती है. EU स्टाइल तो हो सकता है कि जैसे क्या नाम क्या होगा EU स्टाइल गवर्नमेंट, EU स्टाइल यूनियन का,
India in South Asia.
सब कॉन्टिनेंटल यूनियन का,
I don't think
साउथ एशियन यूनियन होगा शायद नाम इसका.
अरे there is you cannot get on the page with SAARC itself. How can you become like a union as in sense?
अगर इंडिया एक्सर्ट करे तो होगा, क्यों नहीं. अब इंडिया खुद में ही यूनियन है. सोच ही देख, ब्रिटिश टाइम में तो सारी मतलब लगभग इंडिपेंडेंट थी, इतनी सारी टेरिटरीज को जोड़ा, उसके बाद अब यूनाइट होगी.
Right.
मगर मान बेसिकली यूनाइट होने को भी तैयार नहीं होती हैं, तो ये तो कर सकते हैं ना कि जैसे ईयू में कि अपना कॉमन पासपोर्ट हो गया और फ्री एक्सेस हो गया. बेशक अपनी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन बेशक वो रहे, लोकलाइज रहे, मगर मतलब ट्रेड क्यों एक तो पॉपुलेशन कितनी, हाफ द वर्ल्ड नहीं, हाफ तो नहीं, 1/3 ऑफ द वर्ल्ड पॉपुलेशन है ये. कितनी मिला देख, 1.3 बिलियन इंडिया की, 250 मिलियन पाकिस्तान की, ठीक है, तो 1.5 तो यही हो गया. और उसके बाद फिर अपना
बांग्लादेश
बांग्लादेशी भी इतनी है, बांग्लादेशी भी इतनी है, तो 1.7